Hey everyone, welcome to the new episode of the Handbook podcast. Today I'm really excited to have Mario to discuss everything around growth and product-led growth. We have been working together in OutSystems, a great scale up where he led actually product-led growth initiatives and a lot of other things. He has been there for 16 years. So a really long journey from basically zero to decacorn. So a lot to dive there. I also had the opportunity to work with him for way longer at Software, where he was the head of growth. Now he advises multiple startups on these topics. He works with Product-Led, which is one of the biggest institutions on the topic, and he's also the VP of growth of Graphics. So yeah, Mario, thanks
Yeah,
for
my pleasure.
joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So yeah, of course, it was a no-brainer for me to invite you over because, yeah, when I think of product-led growth, I think you are really the person that brought me there in a way. So I would actually start from there. I think it's a very common buzzword for founders to hear, especially if they are in the SaaS space. How do you define product-led growth in the simplest way? How would you explain it to someone that doesn't really know the topic?
To someone that doesn't know the topic, but is somewhat in the in the SaaS world, I doubt that they don't know
Yeah.
what it is. But it's about growing your company, growing your business through product. So your product essentially becomes a marketing channel, if you will.
Yeah. Do you have any example that you usually use as a reference to really explain people, okay, this is what it is, this is what it looks like?
There are many, fortunately, right now. Just recently, Loom got acquired by Atlassian, and Loom was just that. I was actually checking their web archive a while ago. So they started very early with a very open and free offer, a very generous free offer, and a generous free offer that really was really easy to use, really easy to set up, and really easy to get value from. Like within a few seconds, you had your first video recorded and shared with someone, and and so that's one. When you share your video, other people will want to reply maybe in the same way. The video is branded, so they sign up and they share their video, and the more people in your company use Loom, the better, the more value everyone gets. So there's word of mouth going around the people that are using Loom, and the cycle the cycle goes on. Loom is a good example.
Yeah, it continues. Yeah. I remember using Loom when it was free and there was no limits
Exactly.
on the recording you could have. So yeah, I think that's at the essence of product-led growth, like a product so good that you don't need a salesperson to sell it for you almost, and people just see it and want to sign up. So there are a lot of frameworks to understand when to consider product-led growth for a company. We have been discussing this a few times already. What do you usually use when talking to a startup you are advising, for example, to help them understand, is product-led growth something that I should look into? Should I use it just as a complementary skill set in my Swiss Army knife? Yeah, what's your approach usually?
So product led growth is a go to market strategy. It is not a tactic that they decide to apply or not. So first thing I first thing first thing is if you've reached product market fit, then you go and grow. All right. Until you do, you don't know if that go to market strategy is the right go to market strategy, and so you have to try everything, um, or maybe you don't. And the you don't have you shouldn't perhaps consider trying even product led growth, if the setup time it takes to get your product ready for someone to extract value is too long, maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks plus support plus whatever. So if that's the type of product you're selling, if you're selling a Workday competitor, for example, then then the go-to-market motion is not for you, because people will never be able to be successful on their own. But with time, I've learned to appreciate the value of the multiple shades of gray, not the movie, but the hybrid nature of all of this. So for the B2B companies that I work with, the value is somewhat in the middle. They have a go-to-market motion to evangelize the users, to get users to be excited, and they have a sales motion working in tandem for the buyers. And that's where the big dollars come from.
Okay, so you're saying even in early stages of a company, you might want to have the typical product-led facade in place and people that can sign up by themselves, they can self-onboard, and there is a team working on making sure that the experience with no touch, no personal touch still works well. But at the same time, you have the salesperson, the SDR that goes and reaches out to bigger accounts, and the account executive that tries to close those
Correct.
leads.
Correct.
That's
So
what
if
you're
it
talking
doesn't
about.
fit the credit card, right, you need to bring in a salesperson. Another way to think about it is, if the deal is big enough that you can give maybe 5% away in a commission, then or maybe that you can afford with all those deals a salesperson, then maybe you want to bring a salesperson. But yeah, and more often than not, um, I'm very biased, and given the companies that I'm exposed to, there's always a self-service motion and a sales-led motion, but the two work well. And sometimes they use, another pattern is you use product-led to land the deal, and then sales combined with customer success to expand. But more than any, you can also look at product-led growth as a philosophy where, and this is more like philosophical, but also very practical, where you want to give the best possible experience to users. That's what Loom does, Zoom, Slack, all of those that spread like a virus in organizations. They had very good product experiences, and regardless of what type of product you have, there are things that you can learn from offering an experience that delights your users and that offers value to users. So, so that is a principle that you can adopt regardless of what type of product you're selling.
Yeah, I would say the multiplier of having an optimal product in terms of experience is bigger when when you have people self onboarding, because a product being mediocre might be fixed by having a salesperson there to present the product and to help people navigate it. But when your users are left alone in there by themselves, then having top-notch experience is really gonna make the difference compared to competitors. So I think, yeah, regardless, everyone should do this, but product-led growth companies even more. What do you think are the core? I think what you shared is a core principle, right? So if you want to follow this route, really focus on the experience of using your product. Is there any other core principle, let's call it paradigm, that you usually come back to when making difficult decisions, or you're helping a founder making a decision in this field? And I don't know, maybe there is a sentence that you often repeat to remind them of really the core things to think about when making decisions in the product-led growth environment.
In a product-led growth environment, product-led marketing, product-led growth in general, what I come to all the time is value. If you're always optimizing for value for users, like the other day we were discussing that we should add an AI bot of sorts connected to our knowledge base to help customers get answers. And I asked why. Why do we want to do that? Why now? Help me understand. And the answer was, yeah, the team is really flooded with requests, so we just need help. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. What's the value for the user? Like, is the experience going to be better? Is that the right solution? What is the trade-off? And if the trade-off is value, I will not make the decision. I will not. We wouldn't let it forward. Turns out that AI is answering even better than our agents. uh, now. Uh, so it's all good. But the principle is value. What is the value?
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. That's how to look at it. That's what matters at the end of the day. So yeah, trying to teach founders how to fish, not giving them a nice cooked fish. And talking about this specifically, is there any resource that you would suggest to, again, people getting up to speed on the topic? Let's say that you just hire someone pretty junior and you want them to start grasping these first concepts or to get a better understanding of product-led growth. What are the people on LinkedIn you tell them to
Yeah.
follow? I think I know a few names there. The books that you suggest, the podcasts that you tell them to listen to. What do you
It's
have a list?
relatively easy because my list is public actually. So I have them all on productledstack.co, and there's an experts there's an experts tab, and there's also books and resources. But um, if you're starting, Leah has a very good Leah Tarian has a very good guide. And then as you move on to more advanced stuff and more concrete things, obviously there's Elena Verna, and a bunch of others that are publishing content. I have my own newsletter, but it's pretty bad compared to the other two that I mentioned. But you will find some stuff there, I think, that are useful.
Yeah. Perfect. So yeah, as always, we're gonna leave the links in the description of the podcast for whoever wants to go. I highly suggest to give it a read. Yeah, because I think there are resources for every level. You can get pretty deep in the product-led growth discussions then to start talking about also the pricing models, for example, right? Which is actually another topic that I wanted to discuss with you. I think it's one of the first topics that people encounter when starting to move the first steps into this world. So how do you see the whole discussion about freemium and free trial? And again, how do you help startups make a decision when they are not sure whether to offer a free version of their product, whether to create a free plan of their product, or whether to do both or neither?
Yeah. Um, I actually wrote a. I was looking at it now to see if I could share it in the notes, but not yet. So subscribe to the newsletter if you want to get it in a couple of weeks. I actually wrote a short guide about that, but it's not ready yet. The free trial, the decision between free trial or freemium, or is has to be a data-driven decision. A data-driven decision. Either you're optimizing for the outcome, which is more revenue, for the bottom line, more revenue, or you're optimizing for more users and then revenue. That's what Loom did when they gave you that free version with almost unlimited, right? They are optimizing for capturing the market. Then they switch strategy. Then they go for right now. I think it's a reverse trial, and it's capped in terms of usage. You can only record 5-minute videos and a limit of 20 or something. So you change the strategy there. So there's a lot to unpack maybe here. First thing is, you don't have to get married with the strategy. It can change. You can start with one. If it doesn't work, um, change it. The other thing is, um, what are you optimizing for? So the bottom line, optimize what are you optimizing for? In some cases, there are second order effects that you have to consider. Maybe your product, maybe you can't offer a free trial because the cost of supporting one client is so high that you cannot possibly have 100,000 clients in your infrastructure without bankrupting the company. So that also is something that you have in mind. So yeah, around these variables and your objectives, you have to decide. Typically, free trials have higher conversion rates, so better people come in, but you get less users. So if your goal is to optimize for more users, then go for the other one.
Do you think there are parameters or questions based on which a startup should optimize for having more users or for more revenue? Of course, it's a very nuanced discussion. But yeah, when would you suggest to go for one rather than the other? Maybe
Yeah.
just if you have a few situations in
So
mind.
early stage, even pre-seed or seed very early, just just prove that you have traction, interest, users. I think volume is better. Again, depends on the product, right? If you're a very niche product for enterprises, the game changes. But if optimized for users, for traction, for word of mouth, and then layer on your monetization. But regardless, we only want to attract users to make money, right? That's it. We're attracting users to monetize them later. It's okay if we assume in our business model that a percentage of them will never monetize, but a business will not survive, especially now. Never, but especially now, anyways, with only VC money. So I would go for traction first, and then you get a good, maybe a good seed round, and you can start to get traction in a different way. But always trying. I'm always keen on making some sales that, like, until someone gives you money, it means very little.
Yeah, sure. That's important to know that you actually have something in your hands that people are willing to pay for. So I agree. You need a little bit of validation in that sense. It makes conversation with the investors much easier. So on that it always like, are people actually going to pay for this? If you can present a few cases where it's like, look, actually we sent out 10 proposals for people to pay and 5 people decided to pay for this, that already helps. But optimizing for users at the beginning, I think, does something also very helpful, which is it speeds up the feedback loop, right? One issue with testing that we also discussed in previous episodes of this podcast is, especially if you're a B2B startup, like, good luck getting any statistically significant number on your test, right? So at least you have users to talk to ask them
And
questions and
sometimes
get
good luck
qualitative
with that as
feedback
well, right?
about,
Sometimes it's hard to get those users to
yeah,
talk to you. They come
true,
in, they go away, and
yeah.
they say, from 1 to 10, I hate your product, so I'll give you a 5, and you try to reach out to them and you can't. So
Yeah.
it's
Do you have any tips on how to manage this part, the qualitative feedback collection, or
manage the
quantitative
feedback or
as well?
get feedback.
Let's start from getting it. Step number one.
It's very interesting that you asked that question. It comes to me all the time. It comes to me all the time in the conversation, because I always ask someone. So I always ask people, why are you building this feature? And they're like,
Mhm.
and they're like, oh, because this is really awesome and it will make it so much easier. I'm like, so much easier to whom? And the answer is like, well, it's obvious. Like, if you do this in the new way, it's faster, so it's easier. I'm like, okay, but is has anyone ever shared that that's a bottleneck that's even worth?
Mhm.
And this is actually a real conversation from this week, and the guy was like, no. So why are you doing it? And then I go on sharing my framework. My framework is, if there's something that is important, like if there's something that is important, there has to be some feedback about it. There has to be some comments about it. Like, in this meeting I had this morning, just this morning, one of my colleagues were saying, people say that this is really hard. And I'm like, well, let's from now on agree that we don't use generic terms anymore. We don't use people. We don't use everyone. We don't use everything is broken. If there are people that are saying that, give me 5 examples. And it's like, oh, I can't give you 5 examples. Okay, so if you can't give me 5 examples, then maybe go get them, and then we continue the conversation. Because you make wrong decisions just based on this, and then the next question comes, which is, oh, it's really hard to talk to people. And to that, I say, try harder. Just try harder. Just
Mhm.
send them emails. If your emails are not working, connect with them on LinkedIn. If LinkedIn is not working, try another approach. But try harder.
Yeah. I think there is also another point, which is then maybe they are not the right users. Again, depends a lot on the product. But I remember seeing something at Software. We had, it's funny you say these stories because then I think back and I'm like, yeah, actually, it's thanks to these type of discussions with Mario that now I'm also trying to bring back more concrete data when I make the case for something. It's very important. But yeah, for collecting feedback, I remember you set up a super simple email, which was like, hey, I saw you didn't use the product for in the last 7 days. Do you want to talk? And that email had like a 20% response rate sometimes. And I was like, this is insane. But yeah, if people are interested in the type of solution that you're offering and you send them an email like this, at least 5% of people should reply. Otherwise, maybe they're not that interested into what you are solving for them,
Precisely.
right? So
Email,
yeah,
I can
that's very
actually
simple.
then share with you. Actually, I should share my templates as well because I have a bunch of those that I tuned. Most of them I based on someone else's templates and whatnot. But the the the, the emailing users generally works. And now you have ChatGPT that allows you to write these amazing, perfectly written emails. And so I never use it to create these emails. I always write them by hand. And sometimes, if
Yeah.
I'm writing and there's a typo in the email, I let the typo be.
Yeah, that's actually the biggest hack to increase response rate to anything is mistyping something. So maybe don't do like I did, because once I misspelled shift and forgot a F. But if the mistake is not that big, you're still gonna get some comments of people saying, "Hey, by the way, you got this wrong." People love to point those things out. Yeah, I think founders especially, but even maybe more junior people sometimes tend to oversimplify these things. Is a little bit like the Jedi meme where there is like the newbie that has like, I'm just gonna send us personal simple email to the user, and then in the middle the person that tries really hard and has all the tracking in place and all the automation. But then once you go past that curve, you go back to, I'm just gonna email the users and ask them to chat with me. It's the most straightforward, simplest option.
Just before the podcast, I went hiking, and I live in the mountains, and I was hiking with a founder. And this founder that I know for a long time, I used to advise for his company. He's like, "Oh, I'm very busy. I'm very stressed." Yada yada. And then a few minutes later, he was telling me that he answers all customer support queries. Still, it's a small company, 14 people, but he answers all support queries. And and I, of course, I knew why. I know why he does it, and he doesn't delegate it because it's his way to talk to users. And contrast this with another conversation with another founder that I had this week about, hey, you should be on intercom answering customers. Oh, I don't have time for that. And I'm going to
Yeah.
go.
Maybe both a bit too
Maybe
extreme,
both
but
are a bit too extreme, um, but you know how it was at Software, right? At Software, the Arthur was behind, the CTO was behind the chat all the
yeah,
time, and
yeah,
it's really great that he was doing it and learning from the users.
yeah,
And Software is where it is today a lot because they they listen to the users
yeah.
really well.
Yeah, I think that was a key component of growth, especially at the beginning, and user happiness. If you look at G2 reviews of software, support chat is mentioned so often. It's unbelievable because, yeah, it's also a great way of gaining people's love. You see a founder, the CEO of a company that answers your query, you get very excited. I still remember to this day, I called that I got, I think 2 years ago or three even, from the founder of this company that sells fruit. Equal Food is actually Portuguese, you might know it. And I got a call on a Sunday morning from their founder, which I knew because he's in the same field, let's say. So I recognized his name when he called me, and I was like, wait a second, is the CEO calling me, asking me if everything was okay with my order? And like I told him, yeah, actually, the strawberries went bad pretty fast. And it was like, yeah, we know, we are already on top. We talked to the provider. Next time we're gonna send you some extra ones for free. And I was like, yeah, this is amazing. I'm gonna keep buying from this company because it really makes you feel special
Yeah,
as well. So pretty
absolutely.
good feeling. since we are on the topic, what do you think are the things that founders or junior people in growth often get wrong about growth overall? If you want to go also specific about product led, what are the key things that you would put as an alert when starting to moving
About
into
growth,
this?
founders or junior people?
Let's go for founders. I think
Very
most of
harsh
the
with
people are
founders
in that.
as far as growth is concerned, normally. Because the first thing they get wrong, in my opinion, is that they don't let go. We growth people, we don't need founders to tell us how to grow a business. We need founders to tell us the context that we need to know in order to sell the product. They know the audience better. They know the pains. They've been selling it manually, let's call it manually, for a long time. We need them to share that context with us so we can apply, so we can think about creative content, creative acquisition loops, creative retention loops, and whatnot. We need them for that. We don't need them to tell us how to do our job as far as growth is concerned. So, so I've been working with founders for years now, even when I was at OutSystems, and letting go is one of the things that I think that they need to do. The other thing that often happens with founders is the next shiny object thing, which I know you know what it is, right? It's just like there's this new idea that I heard in this conference, and now this is gonna work for us, and then they don't realize they're founders, and they say this in a Slack group en passant, and then the company shifts gears to go after that thing. So that's another thing. I guess some founders also lack a little bit of discipline. There are things that take time to be built, that take discipline, that take time and discipline, and either you believe it or you don't. But like, don't tell anyone to increase your organic traffic to 30,000 visits a month in a month, because that's not going to happen. It's going to take 6 months, and so that's that. The other, I guess, I'll finalize with another thing that founders need to shift towards as the team grows. Say you're a team of 2 or 3, and then you start to become a team of 7 or 20. They need to start learning how to get leverage of the people they have instead of being all over the place controlling every little thing. Like they need to start and shifting. And I had this mentor that did this to me. He said, Mario, you need to grow from being someone that gets results to someone that gets results through other people. And that's very, very different.
It's sort of a founder since seed, basically, right? So of course you're gonna work really hard on your things and the things you need to do, but at the end of the day, if you want to really scale, you need to enable people to do their job and to bring results, even when you're not there. And I think in a way, this expectation, this new shiny object syndrome, this thing of something is not working in a very short period of time, so we need to move to something else, is also because there has been a bit of confusion around growth and hacking and experiments. So yeah, how do you see that? Because I think there is a lot of confusion in people when you talk about growth. People that read Sean Ellis' book, they immediately think of, okay, then this is just fast-paced experimentation, which is definitely a component of growth, but it's often contextualized in a bigger sphere, right? At least that's how I see it. So yeah, how do you see it? What's your point of view on this?
Well, the purpose of growth, as I see it, is to create a sustainable and predictable way of growing your business. It's sustainable and predictable, and by definition, by this definition, there are not enough there are not enough hacks that you can do in order
Yeah.
to build them. Now, hacks are important. Creativity is important. They will boost they will boost the initial growth. But as much as possible, we need to start thinking, how do we create acquisition loops? How do we that make users drive more users? And how do we create retention loops that make users drive more users to engage in the product? And so
Yeah.
that's how I see it. The founders I work with, the majority of them have this tendency for the hacks. They have this tendency to disrupt teams for short-term results, and not and get very very impatient about that. I didn't mention this, but back to the previous question, another thing that I often see is that some founders, two more things, which is important. One is they don't need to be the smartest person in the room all the time. They will have to accept that they are no more the smartest person in the room. They need to let others shine, and that's really hard for some. And the other thing that they often do is sort of a wishful marketing or wishful selling. They're selling a vision. They're selling this vision, and they used to sell to investors, but the product doesn't do that yet. Like, I'm selling this vision that will increase your revenue tenfold, and your product, all it does is collect contacts in an app. And
Yeah.
selling to investors is really different than selling to a subsegment. I'm sorry I went back to the question.
No, 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 but it's
But
great. And it's funny because, I've also been on the founder side, and you realize that even though you know these things, and when you are on the spot, it's very easy to fall into these traps. So it's important to highlight them, because it's the best way of catching yourself doing it, knowing that you need to look for it. Otherwise, yeah, you default to that. Also, because I think there is, if you want to be a founder and a successful one, there are some parts of your personality that drive you to some of this behavior, right? If you're not, a lot of founders, I'm definitely not a perfectionist, but I see perfectionism in a lot of founders that I know and that are good. And so I started asking myself, okay, maybe this is something that you need at the beginning, especially maybe when you're getting started, or you need that almost OCD level of attention to be on top of everything.
that's
But then in
perfection.
some other parts of the company, you
That's
need
not
to let go.
perfectionism. That's not wanting to lose control. Perfectionism is a
Yeah.
different thing, right? Perfectionism is you debate ad nauseum the color of a button, or the a word, a
Okay.
pixel.
Yeah.
The That's micromanagement is not perfectionism. Micromanagement is that they're afraid of losing control, um, and they need to, quite frankly, grow up. They need to grow. I don't know if we can curse in this podcast. So they need to
It's
grow the
fine. Yes.
fuck
Yes.
up and understand that they need to get results through people, and provide the right context and objectives that let those people come up with a solution that is 10 times better than whatever the founder thought. But the most founders think they know it all and they have the solution, and so they'll be happy if you do it the way they're thinking you're doing. Otherwise, they'll, in a discussion, destroy any argument that
Yeah.
you present, and that destroys the
Yeah.
team, that destroys the company.
Yeah. No, of course. I guess the other reason for this is that ideas, just like for startups, but even for growth, the growth context, ideas are important. But then what really makes the difference is the execution and making sure that people follow up on those things. And I see it a lot of times. As a founder, you have access to probably very good advisors. You're following the right people on LinkedIn. So you see good ideas that they present you with, but it's not enough to just bring the idea. Then you need to make sure that that idea is executed correctly, and again, that people keep building up to create that compounding growth that really creates the magic. And yes, and I think sometimes for the sake of arguing for one idea or imposing one idea, you lose that other part, because then the growth person doesn't feel the ownership of that initiative maybe, or they would have done better the other one because they know better the whatever the tactic that they were going to use, or the tools, or anything else. So yeah, I think that that could also be an issue.
Yeah, it's really hard to leave
But like,
your ego on the side, and it really takes maturity and maturity to be humble and just listen to the other person that is giving you an idea or show what. Just give them credit. Like I'm sure I fail a lot in this. I'm almost certain I fail a lot, but I do try to listen to an idea, even if even if I think at the surface that it is stupid or that is not going to work. Because why? Because I respect the intelligence of people that I'm working with. Otherwise, I wouldn't have hired them. So so I'm like, maybe he or she is not explaining themselves in the best way. What is behind that? Help me understand. And more often than not, I was making a rush judgment about something that was being said, um, and I was gonna, how do you say, dismiss someone without listening to them. Now I also tell them sometimes, hey, you're the CEO. You want to make that decision, make that decision. Um, you don't need to explain to me whatever, just make the decision. Uh, if you don't want to make the decision, okay, let's continue with the discussion. Because sometimes they're also hesitant. I don't, there's also, they also hesitant. They also hesitant about, is this like, they're the CEO and they don't know sometimes, right? They don't know the role power. So what if you have to be very clear. Because you have
yeah.
power and influence even without asserting that power and influence.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, people look at you as the person that is
Uh,
leading the company, right? So,
Sharing an opinion,
um,
or
yeah,
do I have
for
to say
sure.
yes to please you? And it's going to depend on how you treat people, how you listen to
Yeah.
them, if you are going to get people to please you or people to challenge you. I would at times prefer someone that challenges what I'm saying than someone that says yes to what I'm saying. 100 times.
No, you're wrong.
That's it.
uh, but yeah, no, I think that definitely every founder that I worked with always said, we want we want you to be open. We want to hear your feedback. We want to hear your idea. If something doesn't work, please tell us. And I think I usually don't have as much of a I don't have a hard time doing it, maybe because of previous experiences or because of personality or whatever. I'm pretty easygoing. Uh, but what I saw also looking at colleagues is everyone says that. What really makes it happen is how you behave during the rest of the year, right? So are you then how do you behave when someone brings you an idea, even though it's an idea that maybe you don't believe in? How do you respond to that? Um, and a trick that I noticed from you, but I mean, I think it's pretty common amongst people that are in leadership positions and that gave thought about this is asking questions. I think you're pretty good at asking the right question to help people reason through their idea and thinking and help yourself understand the idea better and also help them think, okay, is this idea actually good or did I miss something? And it's just like getting answers from a user about your product in a way. You need to ask the right question without biasing them too much or at all, and trying to get more information and more of what's behind what they actually are telling you at the
First,
moment. So that's really
first of
important.
all, thank you. Second of all, I don't think I'm that good. I do it in effort. I it is do it.
Yeah.
It is not natural. I'm very impulsive, and I try to I make decisions very quick, and I make really bad decisions a lot of times. And my initial thought, if I'm in a hurry, is like to shut the person down and interrupting them and whatnot. So I have to fight a lot against that. So it's easy for me to criticize myself because and others that act like me, because I'm seeing myself and I'm like, shit, that's not it should be. And but
Yeah.
I think I learned with good mentors and good leaders, if you're genuinely curious, like I'm asking questions, you don't go and why do you want to do that in this tone, right? That's like you're gonna shut it down. But if you can, you help me understand
Yeah.
or explain to people why you're asking the questions, then ask the questions, and then they'll feel confident enough to be vulnerable and to say, hey, I didn't think about this well, just I'm putting this in front of you, and that's safe, and it's a safe intellectual ground
Yeah.
for people to discuss ideas. I've
Yeah. Okay. So what I'll get from this, since I never saw that impulsive side, is that I never brought you bad ideas. That's what I'll tell myself. But yeah, I actually, so to make sure that we don't lose all the audience of founders listening and we throw them a bone, what is instead something that people, let's say mid-level or even senior people in growth often get wrong? You can use me as well as an example, right? So people that have been working in the field for 3, 4, 5 years, do you see anything that they overcomplicate or any assumption that is usually wrong?
um, I'll tell you a very tactical one that I see over and over and over again, and then a more conceptual one. The more tactical one has to do with website traffic. All all companies, I don't think I've seen any exceptions. When I look at the metrics of traffic, um, they're always celebrating the growth of traffic and the growth of signups, but they never slice the relevant ones and the non-relevant ones. So for a company that I work now, it happened. I joined, they're like, we have this amazing amount of traffic. And there was this post that was created, blog post, that was bringing like thousands of visits. Company is Graphex. It's a company about analytics. An analytics, a data science platform or an advanced analytics platform. And we did an analysis on why couples break up. And every time, more or less in August and September, there's a spike in traffic because apparently people think about breaking up and just go and find a post. And that post is, the traffic is irrelevant. So one of the first things the team did was, let's take this out of our analytics. This traffic doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. We don't look at it. So that's one. Right? It goes for relevant traffic, relevant pages, relevant signups, relevant users, whatever. And the definition of relevant is your own. So that's one thing that comes to mind. The other is a lack of discipline in defining the objectives and tracking them. Which leads to, hey, we create we're going to go after something. We didn't define the objective, so we don't even know if it's going to success or if it's going to hit success or not. Or I defined the objectives, but then 2 weeks later I come up with a new thing, and the objective that was defined 2 weeks ago no longer is part of the conversation. Maybe 10 to 20 metrics, and I review those 10 to 20 metrics together with the team every week.
That's something that I never do as much. I always would like to do more, actually. Yes, being consistent.
We have like this
with your
very
metrics.
archaic spreadsheet. If you think it's useful, I can delete the data and share it. But it's like it has the metrics and the progress week after week, and we look at it every week.
Yeah, keeping it simple is usually also the best solution. Yeah, going back on a more strategic level, company-wise. So growth is this hybrid within many different things, right? It's pretty new as a concept, as a term, and so people are not sure where to place it in marketing or product or as its own thing. So how do you usually see successful startups implement a growth team or a growth person who who are they reporting to? How is the team structured usually?
Post product market fit, because pre-product market fit,
Yeah. Okay.
there was this guy
Yeah. Sure.
Anthony Perry. I love him. You should follow him on LinkedIn. Is a great guy. You can maybe include his profile here on a show note. He said this week, I think, if you're asking when is the right time to hire your first growth people, you're doing it wrong already. It should be part of the founding team, the growth person. But that's pre-product market fit. If you get to product market fit and you want to create a modern growth team, consider having someone with a background in marketing, someone that can tell your story, someone that is more on the product marketing side, but on the storytelling value proposition side. A product manager, product, obviously a couple of developers that you can resort to make changes to the product, A/B tests, etc. A designer and an analyst or a data scientist. So this is what I like to set up as a growth team. And then
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. So it operates as an independent team, basically.
then team
That's
that
how
works
they work.
that it's an independent team. I mean, it has autonomy, but has to work in collaboration with other teams, right? But
Yeah, of course.
yeah,
Yeah.
and here again, you'll see maybe founders sometimes ask, "Oh, but that's product. I own the product. Like I'm the visionary of this. Like I'm gonna let other people touch the product." Yes.
Simple answer. Yeah, yeah, of course. It's very interesting the post you mentioned from Anthony. Should probably invite him over to the podcast as well. So as a growth person in the founding team, I know that there are a lot of way of thinking about this. There is like a whole philosophy that is like, okay, don't hire a growth person before product market fit, or some people that tell you actually it can be helpful because it allows you to find product market fit in a using different way of thinking and different approaches. So is that what he was referring to? And that's also how you see it. It's important to have someone in the founding team that is thinking about how to unlock loops and how to build them and has this in
I
mind from
think
the
it was
beginning.
more in the lines of the product marketing angle. Someone needs to be able to tell a good story
Okay.
to create a good value proposition. Uh, uh, but um, but still, but I maybe I generalized it a little bit to growth. But I think there has to be someone that knows how to grow a business. Like we are running we are running a business. How do we grow a business? How do we like these people, the growth people like us? We're trained to identify value that is relevant for a segment that we can also identify, and then we think about the best way to attract to go after that segment. That's what we do. um,
Yeah.
and this needs to exist somehow in in the team.
Yeah. Yeah. In the way people think when they build the product. And we talked about loops quite a bit. So maybe for people that don't know, we can just quickly define what is for you a loop. Yeah. What do you think is a growth loop, retention loop? How do you identify those? And how do you go at actually building them for your product?
My framework is the framework that I learned in Reforge. When I think about the growth model of a company, I'm thinking about um, linear growth channels or hacks or whatever that is going to drive that initial growth, that will feed acquisition loops, and then we have acquisition loops and then retention loops. So three layers. An acquisition loop is essentially some experience that you build that will attract more users to your product. But at the core of the loop, I don't think I heard this from Reforge, at the core of the loop is value. There has to be value. It can't be like you could create a loop, right? You pay 100 euros to someone to sign up. They sign up, then you pay another. It's just like you're paying people. It's not really self-sustainable. There's no value. There's value for them, but there's no value for them joining, other than that immediate thing. So, so an acquisition loop is centered in value. For example, I guess the most common one is Slack. You want to invite people to Slack because Slack gets more valuable if everyone is on it, and people want to join Slack because they're not on it, and they should, because they're not able to communicate, right? And then the retention, I guess the retention loop is about bringing them back to Slack when they want to communicate, taking them out of email and keeping them in Slack. So maybe that's why the notifications exist, to bring them back to the product. Um, so I'm thinking about virality and acquisition loops, and I'm thinking about virality and acquisition loops, for example, and retention loops normally associated with collaboration.
Yeah, makes sense. Multiplayer products is usually most of the product-led growth products that exist, and that's an important component of it. So about to let you go, but want to touch on the last parts of these interviews, which is hiring. So now founders listening to this podcast, they heard us talk a lot about the right mindset. Let's assume that they are ready to let go of their product and empower someone as a growth person to lead that part of the company. Do you have any suggestions on where to find good growth people? Do you have any playbook there? Very tactical question, but I think it's always helpful for founders to know there is this job board, or you can go and find people that worked for these type of companies on LinkedIn and filter
People that did
out.
Reforge training. That's it. I think that's the easiest one. Just look for people that did Reforge training. And, at least they have the frameworks and the mindset. Obviously,
Yeah,
for
great.
results and impact and so on. But Reforge training is a good proxy.
Yeah, pretty easy one. And in terms of questions, is there any question that you like to ask to assess someone's skill or attitude for the role?
I don't have. I like to present them with a challenge, a real challenge, and help them. How would you grow this? And normally I use a real problem from my business currently, and I let them take their time to think through it and come and present, and then I'll pressure test in context. I think that's better for people and better for us, that we put things in context. So what I'm trying to validate is if they know how to acquire users, how to retain, and how to monetize. But I in context.
Makes sense. All right, perfect. So thanks a lot for this talk. I think it was really insightful. We ended up talking a lot about leadership and working with teams. So that was really interesting. Anything else that you want to say? Maybe where people can follow you? You mentioned already product-led stack. Yeah, where should they reach out?
I'm on LinkedIn. Just reach out, connect. I also have a short website and a newsletter. So, but start with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is easier.
Okay, perfect.
Cheers,
Thanks
man.
a lot, Mario.
Thanks.